I can hear you in my head.
Illustrations by me.
Oh, it's in the shot. That's got to be up there. Don't pay any attention. Don't worry about that. The last video that you just saw, it's like you just saw it last week. It hasn't even been released. Is it released? Is that what a YouTube video is? It's not aired, right? That's something from a while ago, and we don't. Oh, I know. People say, "Oh, it dropped. I just dropped the video." Shut up. That's not what it is. You released the video. That's the right word. It is. So I released the video. You think I released it last week. I haven't released it for another 3 weeks, but I can already hear in my head what everybody is saying. So I'm going to do a drawing this time. I'll do a painting, and I'm also going to respond to what I think you may have said about the video last week, which is 3 weeks in my future. So this one is 4 weeks in my future. It doesn't matter. I still think I know what you're going to say. I could already hear it in my head. As soon as I let it go, I said, I can hear it. I know what's going to happen. The keyboard warriors are their bones are coming through their fingertips, and they're just yelling at me as much as they can. It's okay. Don't worry about it, but I will talk about that. But first, today I'll be doing the painting on this amazing paper. See, my wife knows that I love this old-looking stuff, the papyri and the treasure maps and just old-looking stuff. And so she picked up this it's 100% cotton watercolor paper, but look at it. It looks like it's an old something, just something you dug up from the ground, an old scroll somewhere you found in a hill. Someone's clutching, just the bones are just clutching it. It's great stuff, so I'm going to use this and see how it works. It says, it doesn't say 100% cotton on here. It does on the listing. You'll see the listing. It's down below. It says 7 by 10. This is also not a 7 by 10 piece of paper, but that's what it says, but it's not. But that's okay. It doesn't matter. I'm going to try it out. I don't know which way is the top now. I flipped it around too many times. Don't worry about that. That'll lead right into what we're about to talk about. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so as I use this paper, it's going to lead me into another rant, but before I get to that rant, I have to first address the original rant from the last rant that I was ranting about in the first place. So here's what I know people are going to say. I know that immediately as soon as I said what I said, even though I said it the way that I said it, you go back and check the video and see if I'm right. Someone commented and said, yeah, but the back of the paper isn't the same as the front of the paper. I can tell the difference. Now, I already said and I already acknowledged immediately that that is the case. When you look at the texture, yes, sometimes the texture is different. And I even mentioned that I have a paper where the sizing is different on the front than it is the back. You have to use the front of the paper. You can't use the back of the paper because there's no sizing on it. They only surface sized and they only did it on one side. So I'm not saying that there are not differences in the front and back of the paper. The thing that I was pointing out was that in the sketchbook itself, the signature, that there was many, if you only use the right side of the book, with a book that has signatures, you are using both front and back pages. And if you say you can tell the difference and you can't use the left side because you can only use the right side, you're lying, because the right side has 50% of that right side is the back of the page. I went into that, I tried to go into that as clear as I could in detail. But I understand that people don't listen to me. They're going to complain about that. They're going to say something about it. I just know it. In my soul, I know it. Okay, now let's get back into this particular drawing, this painting drawing thing that I'm doing. I did 2 of them. In the first one, it started out great and then it failed miserably like a Disney remake. Is that too harsh for art video? Don't worry about that. Listen, it was a terrible thing. It started out great, and then all of a sudden, because I put the line work in first and then painted, the paint bleeds on this paper. Now, what I could have done is I could have come on here and reviewed this paper and told you that this is the worst watercolor paper I've ever used. I'll never use this watercolor paper again. It was absolute trash. It was garbage. But that's not what I'm doing. Let me tell you why. Because you have to always use the tools the way they're meant to be used, not just the way you want to use them. I know you want to eat soup with a strainer and a fork, but you can't do that because if you pour the soup in the strainer, it goes right out the bottom. You can't eat the soup with a fork because you're not going to get the soup part. You'll get the insides, but not the soup. You have to use the right tool for the right job. So, in the first video, I admit I started doing what I wanted to do. I drew it out, I had the idea in my head, everything worked great, and then all of a sudden it fell apart on me. It was bleeding outside. Then I started to put this weird thing. I was like, you know what, this is already screwed up. I started putting this weird stuff outside of the drawing and made this little weird creature thing that I probably shouldn't have put in there. But if you look at it, you could see this is like from an old manuscript somewhere. You just have no idea what it means, and that's just how it is. However, what I did in the second one was the way you're supposed to use this paper. So all I realized is, oh, wait a second. I need to put the paint down first for this paper. That way I can put the lines in after and make it tighter. And if you don't know, if you've ever done line and wash, you know that you could either do the line first and then the wash, or the wash first and then the line. The benefits are this, and I've done this in other videos before, but the benefits are, if you do the wash first and then you do the line, you can put the line on the very edge of where the wash is, and it'll be a perfect line and wash immediately. It'll be inside the actual line where it is. Wonderful. If you do the line work first and then do the wash, you run the risk of going outside the lines that you just made. Is that always a terrible thing? No. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's nice. Sometimes you go inside the line because you're creating a highlight. I get that. But the main point is, you have to use the tools the way they're intended to be used. This paper was not terrible. Matter of fact, I enjoyed using it. When I did, even the first one, when I first started, it was great. If I would have just put the paint in first and then created the line work, everything would have went perfectly well. But that's not what I did, so it didn't work out. So then I had to do the second one. And when I did it that way and put the paint in first, it worked out great. It's exactly what I wanted to do. It had the look that I wanted for it. It was wonderful, and it took the paint very well. There's nothing wrong with how this paper took the paint. It's just that it bleeds a little bit from the edge. So once you lay it down, it does tend to move a little bit sometimes. Not a problem if you're doing that first and then adding the ink. Like I said, you can then go on the outside with the ink and just make it. I could have also gone outside of this with a thicker line and created the kind of line that I wanted to with it, and just created a thicker ink line on the outside, that's all. But all in all, it was great. I finally used the pen that I wanted to use. That fountain pen is great. I absolutely love it. I'll put the link down below. But I finally used it. It's been forever since I put it in a video, but I've used it every day. I use it all the time. I absolutely love it. Anytime I come into the office and I need to write something down, that's what I grab for. I absolutely love that pen. It is definitely my daily writer. I use it all the time. In the second video, I needed a little bit of a thinner line, so I used a fine liner. I wanted it to be a little bit more thin and consistent, so that's what I did. But I had no problem, even in the first one, drawing this out with that fountain pen and just making it exactly how I wanted. It worked great. The ink didn't bleed. I didn't find that at all. The ink didn't bleed at all and start to spread or anything like that. It was just the watercolor, and it could have been because of it might be some uneven sizing. I'm not really sure. But it's definitely not terrible paper. It's great paper, and I'm going to use, this pack is huge. I don't even know how many, there's like 50 pages now, I don't know. But I'm saying that there's enough paper in there to do an entire tome. If you wanted to write your own ancient text yourself, you could do it with this paper. It looks amazing. Just the aesthetics of it when you're using it, You're like, I'm doing this on a scroll. That's what it looks like. It looks like this thing is like 200 years old. It looks wonderful. If you're into that kind of thing, I don't even like, now let me share this with you. I'm not into like the warm toned paper very much. Although I do have a beige book that I'm going to use soon. It's different than this. This is more of a yellowish old color looking. You know, the beige is different. It's more of a brownish beige. But when you get to this, it's like, oh, it's that yellow color. I'm not really crazy about it, but I wanted to use it anyway, so I did. And I love it. And I absolutely love the way that it looks. Even though normally I would say, no, that's not the kind of paper for me. But really, I absolutely love this paper. Now, it does feel a little soft. It feels like if you put layer after layer after layer, that eventually it would start to pill a little bit. I didn't have much trouble with this. I put a few layers on, and I layered it pretty good. And it stayed wet much longer than I was used to. That's something that's different. It's definitely sized maybe a little heavy in certain spots where it stays wet, but only in certain spots, so you could have a couple back runs. But all in all, look at both of these. They're fine. You don't see any of those kinds of issues that I'm having at all with when I use it here. So just keep that in mind. And it's called mixed media watercolor paper. It says it has a deckled edge. It's a virgin cotton handmade paper. So you can see a lot of it. It looks really nice, but you know, you just have to, this is basically a no-name brand that you've never heard of before. It's the Leather Village watercolor paper. I've never heard of Leather Village before, but that's what it is. And it seems to be great. I think they're making a name for themselves. It could be the greatest thing of an upcoming paper that you've ever seen. Everybody, all of a sudden, you're going to see 300 videos on this stuff. But I'm telling you, this paper, it worked for what I was doing. I had no complaints whatsoever. I think it was great. But please don't blame me if you buy this paper, it's not exactly what you want. It's a little different. It's not like you're getting an Arches or you're getting Legion or something like that. It's not like that. It's very different paper. So please understand that before, if you're going to buy it, just understand that before you buy it. It is different. It feels different. It works a little different. And you have to take your technique and make it the way that the paper works. You have to apply your technique the way the paper works. Don't expect the paper to use, you can use any technique you want on it. It's definitely very specific. I think the next thing I have to test is to put gouache on it, or maybe I put down some gesso and try and do some acrylic on it, or try and use some marker on it. I think it'll definitely go through to the other side with the marker. It's not very thick paper, like 150 GSM, so it's not very thick. I would definitely stay away from alcohol markers. But I think this is good. I keep saying it, but I think it's good. I enjoyed working on it, and I'm going to use it some more. Okay, well, I did rant about two things already. I ranted about the last rant, and then I ranted again with people who are going to take paper that it doesn't work a certain way, and they're going to say, oh, I don't like this stuff, and that's what people do. Instead of taking it and saying, oh, how can I make this work? And I enjoy fighting paper sometimes. I know that sounds weird. I have all the good cotton paper that I need. So if I don't want to fight it, I use that. But if I don't mind, sometimes I like to fight the paper a little bit. It changes how I create things and some of the things that I do. So sometimes I enjoy that. I know that's a little weird. Maybe you don't like to fight things. Sometimes I enjoy that. I use it in a different way and it works for me. Anyway, that was the two things so far, but I have one more. Just one more thing I want to rant about. So, I get the same thing over and over and over. In all of the old videos where I'm swatching, not old videos, they're not that old, but in all the videos where I'm swatching, inevitably I will use a granulating color, and for whatever reason, people think that I don't know how to make granulation happen with granulating watercolor. Now listen, I have never complained about seeing granulation in a granulating paint. I've never said, I don't see that. Maybe you're looking at it, here's what I think. I think people are looking at it on their phone. It's terrible resolution. They can't see the granulation, so they think I'm complaining about it. I'm not complaining about it. And the other thing is, when you have the separating paints, sometimes you don't see the separation until you do the wet into wet thing. And I get and I know the person was trying to help me. Everybody's always trying to help me. I'm not saying that they're not. I understand that. You're just trying to help me. But listen to what I'm saying when I do those swatches. I'm not complaining about not seeing the granulation. I see it. I still get comments on those older videos where people are just saying, hey, I think you're having a problem because you're using a water brush, or because you're using too little water, or because you're... I'm not having any problem. I don't understand what you're talking about. Or someone says, oh, look at this. Someone trying to use granulating paint and they're not even using enough water. Listen, I see all the granulation. Maybe you can't on the little screen you're looking at it on. But I can see all the granulation. I've never complained about that. The things I've complained about are the strength of the paint. That's what I've complained about. When I did that Schminke video, I complained about the strength coming off the dot. And I even said, maybe it's just because it's coming off the dot. Maybe if I got the tube, or if I got a pan, like a full pan of it, it would be different. But coming off the dot, I had a problem with the strength of the paint, not the granulation of the paint. I saw all the granulation. I know you're probably sick of hearing this from me because I say it so often on so many videos. But I keep getting those kinds of comments, and I understand where everybody's coming from. Everyone is coming from a great place. Everybody's coming from a place of, I want to help you get the most out of what you're using so that you're happy with it. And I appreciate you for that. But please listen to what I'm saying before you then comment that I should be doing something differently, because really, I have no problem. I've been using granulating paint for a very long time. I know how to use it. The only thing that I discovered recently was that if you do the wet into wet, you can see how quickly it spreads, how fast it moves across the paper, and you can see some more separation that way. Not in granulation, but in colors that have separating pigments. Those things you can see a little better. So I do that now for all my paint, just in case there is something that separates, or just because I want to see how quickly it moves. Because I do a lot of abstract art, and I enjoy, not that I need, but I enjoy when the paint just shoots across the page because you dropped it into a little bit of water and it just spreads like crazy and creates its own edges. And then I can go back in with ink and create some lines, and it tells me where to put the detail, and I enjoy that. But please, from now on, just know, I understand how to get granulation out of paint, and if I want it to granulate, I'll make it granulate. And if I don't, I'll put it on as thick as I want. It's just how it is. Didn't I just do a video where I told people that I was angry at other people who berated their own audience? That's not what I'm doing, and if you have a problem with that, you can blame these people that are showing up on the screen here. They're responsible for it. So thumb up the video if you don't care that I'm a little bit hypocritical sometimes, because I already know that I am. I have admitted it 100 times if I've admitted it once. So I understand sometimes I get a little... You know what it is? I'm just, whenever I'm recording and what's running through my head, that's what spills out into these videos. And sometimes it's different than what spilled out into a different video. You just gotta look. You have to be a little bit forgiving with me, because I'm going to stick my foot, at least one of them, down my throat. Most of the time it's both of them in my mouth. But you know what I'm saying. I have that issue. So don't worry about that. You gotta laugh at me. If you can't laugh at me, then you gotta cry at me. And I don't want anybody to cry at me. So, alright. If you would like to join our community, go to illustrationsbypete.com. You can come in, you can put your own artwork on the site and promote it. You can find some inspiration in the free reference photos. You can just use them however you want in your artwork. You do not need to credit me. Or you can come into the forums and talk to some people and maybe give some advice and maybe find a little bit of information that helps you. So come check us out. Alright, that's about it for me. I'm going to go. I'll see you in the next one.